Hi, good morning. So I'm halfway through your midterm essays. There's so much to read, and you guys have done such a terrific job of exploring and talking about your work that I'm completely engrossed and want to respond to each of you in a good way. So forgive me for not getting all of that done. And then also the picture for the collaborative work I haven't gotten to yet. So as I can see, a lot of you have taken vacations or on vacation over the summer, and that's great. So, and you're kind of figuring out a way to incorporate your work along the way, which is so awesome. And this next portion of the class, chapter 14, is all about architecture. So if you're traveling or have been traveling, maybe you have some insights and would like to share some. It'll maybe help you in your journals, as well as your practice tests. If you are in the midst of travels, and hopefully this chapter will enlighten you a bit about architecture and its role in our world, and things that are happening now and have happened in the past. So let's take a look at the schedule, and so you know where we're at. We are so quick to be done with this class. It's amazing. Okay, so chapter 14 module, July 23rd and 29th. And as you can see, the next following weeks will be many chapters in these 2 weeks, and that is a lot of information, mostly historical and reference and chronological. So I'll talk about that when we get to it, but just as a preview for that, let's go ahead and check out chapter 14. All right, so overview. This is really all about architecture. And architecture is art and science of designing structures and spaces for human use. Architectural design in itself is an art form realized through considerations of spatial design and aesthetics related to sculpture, which will be helpful since we just did 3D. Architecture creates three-dimensional objects that occupy a given space and create a visual relationship with the space around them. Okay, so the difference between the sculpture and architecture are their scale and utility. So early human structures provided shelter from the elements. As hunter-gatherer societies transitioned to farming, they made more permanent shelters, eventually formed communities, towns, and cities. And for thousands of years, architecture reflected the specific environment and materials available in their area, including rock caves or huts of wood, soil, and brick. Many were assemblages of materials like grasses, leaves, and animal hides. Nomadic people still utilize these materials, and we still have nomadic people out there doing this. So just so you can see where we're going with this, there are lots of things to view. We start out by talking about traditional methods and materials, most importantly, the post and lintel system. I've given you lots of links, Catalytic in Turkey, to look at, and lots of videos to view. The colonnade, discussion of capitals and what that looks like, the Acropolis, a video with narration, the St. Peter's Square in the Vatican in Rome, another video, and then we end with the Colosseum and the Pantheon, another video to watch. If you've been to these places, you already know how amazing they are, but if you haven't been, this is a great opportunity to take sort of a world tour through the architectural lens and find out more. Okay, we go to France at the Basilica of St. Denis. We also go to Venice to view the Doge's Palace. I noticed somebody in your class has gone to London recently, and so I'm sure you have some things to talk about there. from all of the architecture, which of course was designed in the Greek and Romanesque style. Most of all of our capital and our state buildings, if you go to any of our post offices, they're in the federal style. So you start to sort of look at the world differently when you take on the lens of looking at the world through the architectural designs that people have put forth thus far. We traveled to China in the Far East and to understand the architecture of that area. One of the oldest bridges that's talked about here, a small little video I've incorporated. There used to be a video about how this was actually made, and that's not available anymore, so I just put in a little bit of history, this person who's visited and this man sort of acting as tour guide talking about it. Gives you a little bit of insight, gives you an idea of the feel and the flavor of walking around the square and what it would be like. There's ruts in this road that have been there for thousands of years. It's just amazing that it was built. And so a little bit about the Forbidden City and its earthquake proofness. This video is about why this architecture has stood up to all the earthquakes that have plagued that area, and it's pretty amazing. And this beautiful detail, just beautiful detail, but also super functional. So amazing, amazing things there. We go through cross-cultural influences, and we cross through the Silk Road, and take a look at the Dome of the Rock and all of the detail in that building that serves as a huge space for several different religions based on what's going on inside underneath the dome. And the Hagia Sophia in Istanbul, and the Louvre. You've already visited the Taj Mahal, so I couldn't take you there. But that would fit into this category. We start going into architecture in the Industrial Revolution, beginning in the 18th century. I've included, this is a sort of a long video. You certainly don't have to watch it all, but I really wanted to give you a feel for the Great Exhibition and the Crystal Palace in London that the king was, Victoria and her prince, I should say, were instrumental in making that happen, the Industrial Exhibition. Gustav Eiffel's Tower. And then in America, we start looking at the building of skyscrapers. And this is a great little brief history of skyscrapers. And the world's first skyscraper and the architecture for Chicago. If you're ever in Chicago, I would encourage you to take the architectural tour, which is a boat tour, talks about buildings such as this, which we affectionately call the Corncob Building. And yes, it's just some amazing work there as well. And then I think I take you into modern architecture. Yeah, the new language and Bauhaus and Gropius's Bauhaus structures, the De Stijl era, and Mies van der Rohe. A little bit about Frank Lloyd Wright, his Falling Water, which is, I just had a friend who visited. I have not yet had the pleasure to go there, but it is on my bucket list. And here is a link to the design of Falling Water and his relationship with the Kaufmans, who he built it for. And then a tour with Bob Vila, you'll be happy to know, of the Hollyhock House in LA. And you can visit these houses if you're ever in those areas. The Guggenheim, which is sort of like his last big hurrah, Frank Lloyd Wright's last big architectural hurrah, almost never was built. American architecture, Philip Johnson, famous for his glass house in New Canaan, Connecticut. You might have some opinions about that. How would you feel about living in a glass house? I think it'd be fine as long as there weren't people, other neighbors close by. Otherwise, I think I'd feel like a hamster. All right, so and then Gaudi. We look at the Art Nouveau era, and if you are in Barcelona or have gone to Barcelona, you might have seen the La Sagrada Familia, which is this huge structure that is continually going on in terms of being built and built and built. And then here's an animation showing the completion of Gaudi's Sagrada, so the Basilica, which is pretty fascinating. And postmodern, contemporary, Michael Graves, Seattle, Washington's skyline, and a bit about the Experience Music Project, which is not the Experience Music Project anymore. The building is the same. This is Frank Gehry's design, and it is still the same, but it has now been turned into the Museum of Pop Culture. And I provided the website there for you, but it doesn't really show you much about the architecture. Of course, you can just Google Frank Gehry and you'll see a myriad of things that he has done, including the Walt Disney Opera House in LA, and so many other things, the Bilbao in Spain. So yeah, lots of things. He talks a little bit about his process here. I think it's fascinating, and so I included it for you. And then Hadid's sort of newer architecture, futuristic work that's going on right now. There's so much amazing stuff happening out there in the world of architecture. If this is of any interest to you, you might want to change your major and move in that direction. So, okay. Green architecture. So this should be of interest to a lot of you. This is really about, trying to create sustainable design and things that work within nature and kind of work around and for us. And things like green roofs. If you've ever been to the roof on top of the California Science Museum, it looks very similar to this. We do have that. You can visit the living roof at the California Academy of Science building. And then a bit about earthships. I like to call these hippie houses. Okay, I won't call it hippie houses, but really, it's really recyclable work being done and made into some beautiful homes, and still maintaining this idea of utilizing the right vantage point for light and water collection and hay bales and tires and all kinds of amazing things. There's a place up in our neck of the woods called the Sustainable Living Center, which I might include that somewhere in here, that specializes in the idea of hydroponics, solar living, building cob houses, building bale houses, all kinds of things. It's a great resource if you are of a mind to build something yourself or want to check into what it's like to create a green living space for yourself, composting, all of that. All right, so let's see. What else do we have? I think, journal prompts. Okay, so 2 journal prompts this week, and it does say choose one or more. So again, you can choose one or both, either one. And I've created these links for you to go with prompt 1 or talking about Gone Green using the external links and other resources that you find appropriate. Research and explain 3 examples of sustainable technology and green architecture. There is a lot going on out there, so that is not going to be hard for you to find if you choose this prompt. Okay, so I think that's it. and email me if you have any questions. I will work on your assignments and hopefully we'll be emailing you your collaborative picture so that you guys can see it. All right.